Hello and welcome to Catholic Answers Live. I'm Cy Kellett, your host, and we decided to do an all Superstar Friday here. Apparently, second hour, Dr. Edward Sri will be here. You know Dr. Sri, the author of many fine books, and the guy who made Symbolon. And we're going to talk about living in freedom and how the virtues, the traditional virtues, teaching the traditional virtues is a way to help others to live and help ourselves too, to live in freedom. Among those virtues, chastity in this hour, among probably the most widely kind of followed proponents of and helpers towards living the virtue of chastity. Jason Evert is our guest. You know him. He's been speaking around the world for years and years. He's the proprietor, along with his wife, Kristalina, of the website chastity.com. They have the Chastity Project Minister. He's written 15 or 16 books, I don't know how many now, including How to Find Your Soulmate Without Losing Your Soul. And we're going to talk about chastity this hour. So if it's something that you personally need some help or advice with, or maybe you're a parent or a teacher who would like help on how to convey the beauty in a helpful way to young people of the virtue of chastity, 888-318-7884, our number, 888-318-7884. Jason Evert, thank you for being with us. Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live.
Oh, it's good to be back. I actually just wrapped up recording a podcast with Dr. Ed Sri on our podcast an hour ago, and we discovered we're both on Catholic Answers Live today. So,
so what is this? Some kind of superstar hangout you have? Is this is it like the Super Friends or something of Catholic apologetics?
Oh, he and I used to coach soccer team together for our kids when I lived back in Denver, so we go way back.
We've talked about it many times before, but things aren't. I hate to report this to you, Jason, but there's still a lot of work to do in the area of chastity. Hearts being broken, lives being damaged, and a kind of joy and fruitfulness of the chaste life being missed out on by many people. What do we have to do?
We got to live it. I mean, that's all it comes down to. I mean, programs, curricula, books. I mean, yeah, I'm doing all that stuff, but in the end, that's not really the biggest weapon. I mean, the biggest weapon is holy families. I mean, that's how God redeemed humanity to begin with, and he doesn't really change his ways. And so, if there's anything that the evil one is nauseated about and wants to destroy, it's holy families. Because if we live out our vocation as we're supposed to, we make visible the invisible love of God, and the beauty of God's plan for human love, to me, is irrefutable. When you see it lived as it's supposed to be, you can't argue with it. I mean, you can argue with truth and goodness, but beauty is irrefutable. So I think if we really want to promote chastity, we just got to live it in our own particular vocations, married, religious, or single. We do that. The culture is going to be a much better place.
Again, our number, 888-318-7884. If you'd like to talk with Jason Evert this hour, 888-318-7884. It seems, though, that at least... I'll tell you what, for the entirety of my lifetime on this earth, 57 years, it seems to me that there has been a whole question mark over the virtue of chastity. I don't mean in the wider world. There's no question mark there. I think there's been a general goodbye to the virtue. Yeah. But within the Christian community, a question mark. Is this something we still have to do, or have we outgrown this?
Yeah, I think a lot of young people, unfortunately, were given more of an abstinence message than a chastity one. Oh. And there's now a term being used, purity culture, the very negative connotation that they were kind of shamed, and scared that, sex is the most evil, awful, dirty thing. And so you should save it for the person you love. And it's like, wait a minute, there's a disconnect in the message here. And, and so a lot of people, are entering into their single years repressed in a way of just kind of white knuckling it and ashamed of their own desires and attractions, and something's wrong with me and I'm still sexually attracted to people, so I've got to be displeasing God constantly. And so that message never really hit home as it ought to be, and as a result you got a lot of people kind of throwing away the baby with the bathwater and resenting chastity, of thinking, oh no, I heard that and no thanks, when in reality John Paul II tells us chastity is the sure way to happiness.
Indeed, it is, and I suppose you're right. The easiest way to see that is in a marriage, or perhaps if you're open to such things, in the ministerial life of a holy priest or woman religious, that kind of thing. So we can see that, but I don't know. There just seems to be, even in the intellectual circles of the church, a kind of a hemming and hawing about this, and it has to do with very hard topics for people to talk about, like contraceptives and those kinds of things. But there's still a lack of confidence, I think, among us Christians. Like, yes, this is the virtue that Jesus taught, and he taught it for a reason, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, and when you see it lived out, it has an evangelistic power to it. Like, I don't know if you've ever been to a wedding of a couple that's really practiced chastity, through their dating and engagement years, and it's their wedding day. There's something that makes them glow. There's something potent about it, where when their relatives show up and go through that liturgy, they're like, something happened. Like, that was big. I don't know what that was, but they had the taste of something that went beyond this world. This love that had the fingerprint of God on it, and it brings relatives, and strangers and wedding crashers or whoever, back to the faith, just to see that thing beautiful. Because we can do, I love apologetics, an afternoon at Catholic Answers Live is awesome, but just to be in attendance at a chaste couple's wedding has a potency about it that I think makes the devil want to mar that as much as possible, so no one gets a chance just to witness what it's supposed to look like according to God's plan.
Well, just to go back to something you said earlier, I do think there are many people who will listen and say, well, Jason, wait a second. I thought abstinence and chastity were the same thing. Is there chastity without abstinence, or what are you talking about?
Yeah, no, let's clarify the terms. Abstinence simply means the absence, so to speak, of sex in this case. Celibacy means the state of not being married. That's what that word means. That one gets confused too. But chastity goes beyond abstinence in the sense that it's a virtue that we're all called to live regardless of our state of life. And so for a single person, it would involve abstinence. But guess what? For married couples, sometimes it involves abstinence too. Maybe I have to travel away from my spouse. Abstinence is a part of marriage. You get home, the wife might be exhausted, tired, whatever, not interested. Okay, abstinence can still be an expression of love inside the sacrament of marriage. And the exchange of the one flesh union doesn't make the couple less pure. A lot of people think that they get, and this is something especially that young people struggle with, they think that they get their value from their virginity. And if they lost their virginity, then they lost their value. And it's gone now, I have nothing left to give a man. But your value never came from your virginity. Your sexuality had value because of you. And even if you've lost it, even if you've made mistakes or had it taken from you, you still have the gift to give, which is yourself. That's the gift that you give in the sacrament of marriage. And if you can hang on to your virginity, then awesome. But if not, you're not damaged goods. You're not some second-class citizen in the sacrament. Right. And so we need to understand this is a virtue for all of us, regardless of the past. Anybody can start over.
Again, our number 888-318-7884. Jason Evert, our guest. We're talking about the virtue of chastity, whether that's something that you struggle with and you'd like to talk about that, or something you'd like to help someone else with, maybe as a parent or as a teacher or even as a spouse. 888-318-7884. It does seem to me, Jason, that more and more we are hearing the story of, like you talk about the beauty of the young man, well, it doesn't have to be young, I suppose, but the man and woman who come together in marriage, having been chaste and having prepared for marriage in a chaste way, how beautiful that witness is. But more and more we're hearing the chastity recovery story. It just seems like so many, and I don't think parents are even there. I don't mean to imply that they're being negligent, although I'm sure some of us parents, we are negligent or have been. But you get the kid who, saw the pornography at 10 years old or 11 or 12, or maybe people at a younger age than that. And there was a kind of spiraling for them into a life of really where they were ashamed and alone and isolated. And later, the recovery of chastity is actually a very beautiful witness. And I would like you to say something about that. First, about maybe how a person could recover a chaste life that God is willing to bestow on anyone who wants it, and live in that freedom again.
Yeah, I just received an email yesterday from a wife and a mother who's going through this process right now, where their pornography was part of their life in the marriage, and they were able to she at least was able to break free from that. The husband's starting to break free, but now she's just realizing the carnage that's left behind from buying off on this counterfeit of lust, and how do I put the pieces back together? And what if my husband's not fully on board with all this stuff? And, I know we got married for the wrong reasons at the time, and she's kind of neck deep in the sand, so to speak, of like, what am I supposed to do here? And I always just try to advise people, like, if you're in this fog, I don't care how dense the fog is. You might not be able to see a mile ahead of you or 10 yards ahead of you, but you can always see a foot ahead of you. No matter how thick the fog is, you can always see, like, the scriptures tell us that God's word is a light to our feet, a lamp into our path. A lamp doesn't give you much. A lamp gives you a couple feet, and that's it. God's deliberately saying, he's not saying my word is a lighthouse. Like, no, it's a lamp, meaning you can see the next step. And if you're faithful in taking that step, the next step will become clear. And a lot of times we get this paralyzation of just like, I don't know what the future holds, so I can't go anywhere. You know what you're supposed to do between now and the time you go to bed. Say yes to Jesus. We've got Father Louis there in San Diego in Old Town Little Italy. And one thing he always said to me is that the Holy Spirit talks to you 100 times a day. How many times are you listening?
Yeah.
And so if we can start to listen to that little voice, it might say, hey, why don't you open up to a friend, about your struggle with pornography? Why don't you delete that app on your phone? Why don't you try this? Like, just say yes to the little ones, and God will finish the work he began in you. And
then in a certain way, it's so interesting to hear what Father Louis said. So, I have to tell you, so many people quote Father Louis to me. Like, I don't know what this guy is doing, but so many people just here. Tim Staples was on the other day quoting him. And but that idea that the Holy Spirit speaks to you 100 times a day, part of the joy of the freedom of a chaste life is that you have a quicker willingness to have that conversation, and that's the real joy of life. I think then you're into I wonder what you think about that, but I think when you're having that minute by minute daily conversation with the Trinity, and that's what your life becomes, and you're not blocking that because of either shame or being trapped in something. That really is life is just opens up to be joyful then.
Yeah, I remember speaking to a wife, and she and her husband are going through a conversion experience coming back to the faith, and they stopped contracepting in their marriage. And once they did, she said, I never realized it before, but she said it was almost like they had this umbrella opened up above our heads, and we were blocking so many graces that God wanted to give us. Not just kids, but graces of the sacrament of marriage that we were cutting ourselves off from. And once we finally folded up that umbrella, put it away, and said yes to God's plan, like so many new and fresh blessings have come upon our marriage. And so, and one of those is joy, because, the gift of purity, it does involve willpower and sacrifice, but it's a gift, from God. You have to ask him for it. And it's a part of that fruit of the Holy Spirit. And so it's not all up to you. Our job, if anything, is docility of realizing you can't do it and having the humility to recognize that and just begging for the grace to live as he wants us to.
888-318-7884, our number. We're talking about the virtue of chastity with Jason Evert. If that's something that you would like to talk about as far as needing some help or direction or clarification in your own life, you're welcome to call 888-318-7884. Perhaps you want to be helpful to someone else. If that's the case, you are also welcome. And by the way, as always, you're welcome whether you're Catholic or not. Chastity is for everyone, and you are welcome to ask your question. 888-318-7884.
Catch Catholic Answers live anytime at Catholic.com.
Underwriting for Catholic Answers Live is provided by Real Estate for Life. Real Estate for Life connects home buyers and sellers to real estate agents while supporting pro-life organizations. On the web at realestateforlife.org.
Are you a coffee drinker? If so, you can now enjoy a coffee roasted to perfection by the Carmelite monks of Wyoming. Delicious Mystic Monk coffee is roasted and prepared by monks in a hidden cloistered monastery and is available in over 25 varieties. All Mystic Monk coffees are works of perfection and labors of love. For more information on how to purchase Mystic Monk coffee, visit mysticmonkcoffee.com. That's mysticmonkcoffee.com.
This is Conversations with Consequences, where we delve deeper into issues affecting our church, our country, and our core, the family.
As Catholics, we need to be informed, aware, and able to talk through some of the tough topics that we're facing in our culture and in our world. Conversations with Consequences gives us the tools to do so.
It's not enough to pray. We have to be a light for the world.
Conversations with Consequences, tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern on EWTN Radio.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. I'm Cy Kellett, your host. you're welcome to call. A lot of lines open, actually. I chatted so much with Jason that some calls dropped. So there are lines available to you if you have a question about the virtue of chastity. And by the way, the thing I didn't say is whether perhaps you're someone who disagrees with what the Catholic Church teaches, and the way I would put it, what the Catholic Church teaches in kind of continuity with what many religions and philosophies teach about the beauty of chastity. If you don't believe that that's real, you're welcome to call, and we'll have a discussion about that as well. I am going to go to the phones, but let me tell you this. It's $5 Friday. I thought we were done with alliteration in August, but it's $5 Friday. You can go to shop.catholic.com. Dozens of books, DVDs, CDs, magazines, probably some stuff from Jason Evert there at shop.catholic.com. Up till midnight Hawaii time tonight, $5 Friday at shop.catholic.com. 888-318-7884, our number, 888-318-7884. Do you ever, I know that you don't despair, but I have turned on the viewing machine at times and thought, I don't have very much hope. Like, you go through it and you're like, what on earth? All restraint is gone. What do you say about that? I mean, on a broader, it seems like there's been a general cultural, at least, giving up on the virtue of chastity.
Yeah, I mean, I hear people, say about, chastity is so old-fashioned. It's like, not really. I mean, promiscuity is really old-fashioned. I mean, that goes way back. Dude, right. Open your Old Testament. Like, read about the Israelites. Like, they weren't doing so great. I mean, read about just the paganism and the cults back then, and the sexuality involved in the demonism and sacrificing children to idols after these rituals. I mean, it's pretty messy, and that's thousands of years ago. And so to think that, this came about in the 1960s because of this or that, like, this is the universal condition of fallen human man. And
right.
And yeah, things have gone up and down, and obviously with the invent of the cell phone and all that, there's been a greater accessibility and opportunity to be stupid with your temptations than
right.
ever before. And so young people are facing stuff that they've never faced before. I mean, when I was a kid, if you wanted to see pornography, I mean, you really had to go out of your way. You had to take a risk. You had to steal it from someone or borrow it from a friend and stuff it home in your backpack and hide it in your attic or whatever. But like now, the parents like, here's a phone, be good. Oh, great, you just gave the kid 10,000 billion pornographic websites. And I blocked the websites. Oh, great. Well, he's getting porn on Instagram and Twitter and everywhere else and YouTube. And so, right. Yeah, I mean, we're on a frontier in a sense because of technology. But if you look historically, we've frankly always been a mess.
Well, I mean, I can see the parent who might say, I want the kid to have a phone, but the phone with the pictures, like with the, what some comedian calls the teeny tiny TV that you just carry around in your pocket. When do you think they're old enough for that?
Well, I mean, it's kind of like, in a sense, sex education with kids. Every kid is different in terms of their maturity level.
Right.
I mean, frankly, there's 21-year-olds who aren't ready to have the internet on their cell phone yet because they don't have the self-restraint there, whereas there might be some, 15-year-olds who have. In our household, the kids, we have 2 phones for the older teens at home, but there's no internet on it. They can't install or uninstall apps, so they can text their friends, they can have a phone call, FaceTime their friends, that kind of things. And then, when they get older and we start giving them internet, that we can, load up things like Covenant Eyes on there. So there's more accountability software going on. But it can't be to the point where they turn 18, we push them out of the house, like, here's your first iPhone, good luck in the world. Right. There's got to be incremental steps of walking with them and training them in human freedom, because at the end, they can get around any filter they want at the end of the day. They just can. It's just reality. I don't care how high tech the stuff is, they can find a way around it. Yeah. They have to become their own filter. And so we've got to walk with them on that process, living it out ourselves. I mean, we should live in such a way that our phone is, we got that screen mirror button you can hit. And if you hit that, then my phone shows up on the big screen TV in the living room. Well, I should live like that's always on, so that as if my cell phone screen is being projected to the entire family 24 hours a day. And if I'm willing to live like that, then I'm in a position where I can teach them, to embrace chastity on screens.
That is why my phone is on the TV set. I have never been able to figure that out. I
Yeah,
apparently
just slide down, click it off.
apparently I hit that button. We got a whole bunch of folks on the phone. Let's start with Mary in Highland, Illinois, listening on 92.7 FM. Very happy to have you, Mary. Go ahead with your question for Jason Evert.
Thank you.
Yeah, we wait.
Well,
Hi, Mary.
I don't know how to explain this. I was married when I was younger and then divorced, and then I got remarried again at 42 and was married for almost 23 years, and I caught him cheating. He'd been involved in computer porn and chat rooms and stuff like that, which I didn't know that. But when he hit me, I left. That was 2018. So you talk about being chaste. What exactly does that mean to me? Because I'm no longer married, but I'm not involved with anybody. I have no desire to do that because I've come back to my Catholic faith after 41 years being gone.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
I'm in the process of filing. I know, it's been wonderful. I am in the process of getting the paperwork to do annulments of both the marriages because they were not in the Catholic Church. But does that still make me chaste since I'm not having sex or I'm not having a relationship? I mean, I want to have, if I do have one down the road and get remarried, I want him to be a faithful Catholic who follows the Bible as like I do, because I'm involved more in like prayer groups and stuff like that now.
But you're not sure, Mary, if the word chaste applies to you now.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, Jason?
Yeah. Well, first, Mary, thank you for calling in. Second, I'm sorry for everything that you've had to go through in these relationships and everything that you've suffered there. Sometimes God, in his mysterious providence, allows us to learn wisdom in very painful ways, sometimes due to our own stubbornness or lack of listening to others or whatever. But, we are where we are today. And so God's blessed you, I think, with a unique desire to only enter into a godly relationship moving forward. And so I commend you for beginning the annulment process so that you can be free to enter into that. But you are not unchaste because you have suffered through abusive relationships and that you have entered into marriages that didn't work out. Chastity is about what you're doing right now. And what you're doing right now is you're calling Catholic Answers Live, and you want to live a life pleasing to God. And that, to me, is the sign of the Holy Spirit at work in your life. And so, yes, you are chaste. There's this idea that if you're a virgin, you're pure, and if you're not a virgin, you're less pure. It's like, well, wait a minute. I mean, there's prostitutes getting into the kingdom of heaven faster than, who've repented, than the people who claim to be virgins but are looking at pornography and using people but not going all the way. And so chastity goes a lot beyond simply, am I a virgin, am I not? But am I using my body today to glorify God? In my body and my imagination, my thought, my conversation, the way I dance, the way I look at people, it's encompassing the whole person. And so to me, I absolutely say, yeah, you're embracing this virtue of chastity, and the standard of innocence for you is the same standard of purity that should be applied to a 15-year-old, 16-year-old. It's not as if we get older, we can kind of, I'm not, 14 anymore, so I can do this other stuff. I've talked to so many senior citizens who are in their 60s, 70s, and 80s who've told me they're on the dating scene now. Their spouses passed, and they probably got another good 20 years of their life, 30, and they want to find someone to grow old with. But these, especially women, tell me these guys who are 75, 80 years old are worse than the teenage boys of what they expect on a date. And it's so hard to find a godly man who's 80 years old, 70 years old, but don't give up. You keep those standards high as heaven, and God will bless you.
Okay, Mary?
I get that. I get that completely. I mean, it's I'm not even thinking of dating. So like I said, I've been divorced 2 years now, and I'm not going to jump into something anymore because I realize that's what my issue was.
Yeah.
I wanted clarification from somebody. I don't need that anymore.
Yeah, and just take some time to heal in your life. I'd recommend, there's a TV series called The Chosen. Have you ever heard of that?
Yes, I have. I haven't had a chance to watch it yet, though.
Oh, do
Yeah, I want you to watch season 1. I think it's episode 8, maybe, I'm not sure. If you just get on YouTube and type in Samaritan Woman at the Well Chosen, I want you to watch that little clip. It's 8 minutes long. We just did a podcast interview with Vanessa De Silvio, the actress who played the role of Fotina in this episode. But just get on YouTube, type in Woman at the Well, Chosen, watch that 8-minute clip, and I think God is really going to speak to your heart.
Mary, it's a great privilege to get to talk with you, as it always is a privilege, and it always lightens the heart to speak with folks who have kind of rediscovered the beauty of the Catholic faith, the beauty of that walk with Jesus Christ. So thank you very, very much for the call. Call again anytime. You're always welcome here. All the lines are full now, though, so I'm going to keep moving. Jason Everett is our guest. We're going now to Ruth in Pennsylvania, listening on the Station of the Cross. Ruth, are you with us?
Yes.
Hi, Ruth. Go ahead with your question for Jason. Oh, no, I'm so sorry, Ruth. I messed up the clock. Can you hang on while we do like a few seconds of commercials, and we'll be right back?
Okay.
All right. Very good. Right back. Catholic Answers Live. Jason Everett, our guest. We're talking chastity this hour, and we will continue that right after this.
Catholic Answers Live.
Catholic Answers is doing it again. We're holding our 7th annual Apologetics Conference this September in beautiful San Diego, California, and we'd like to see you there. Join us September 23rd to 26th for a lively and inspiring conference with an all-star lineup of speakers guaranteed to jumpstart your faith. It's a great chance to meet all your favorite Catholic Answers apologists and very special guests as we spend 4 days talking about worshiping and adoring our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. This is where it all begins. Don't miss what promises to be the event of the season. Join us this September for a conference that is sure to ignite, inspire, and inform your faith. Seats are still available, but they're going fast. Visit CatholicAnswersConference.com or call 888-291-8000 to register.
Here's a question. Is it really possible to be friends with someone who died 2,000 years ago? Maybe the problem is that we've grown way too comfortable with the story of Jesus. Nice man, right? Taught us to love one another, said not to judge people. We celebrate his birthday every year. It's time to put away this small, safe version of Jesus, says Cy Kellett. Nobody that bland could have transformed the world. In A Teacher of Strange Things, Cy presents Jesus Christ undiluted by sentiment, with all his radical words and deeds uncensored. Do you know someone, your son or daughter perhaps, or maybe your mom or dad, who needs the friendship of Jesus Christ? Do you? Order your copy of A Teacher of Strange Things by visiting shop.catholic.com today or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Does the church have too many rules? Join me, Dr. David Anders, as we answer your questions right here on Called to Communion, Monday at 2 p.m. Eastern. Now, back to Catholic Answers Live.
Welcome back, Catholic Answers Live. Ruth, are you glad you waited?
Yes, I'm here.
Perfect answer for a chastity show. You're glad you waited. Go ahead with your go ahead with your question.
I have a request. I have a request before my question. I missed Jason's wife's name. I'd like you to repeat that. And then my question is for him to repeat the definitions that he gave on chastity, whatever else.
Celibacy and abstinence. Okay.
Yeah, I want him to focus on celibacy for me, please.
Yeah, we love doing repeats. Okay. You want to call at the end of the show, and if there's anything you need repeated between now and then, I'm just teasing you, Ruth. Was that funny or not? Was that? I didn't mean to be hurtful. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Sometimes Ruth, it's not funny.
My wife's name's Kristalina. So Crystal with INA at the end. And then secondly, in terms of definitions, abstinence is just the absence of something. So if you're abstaining from meat on Fridays, you're not eating meat. If you're abstaining from sex, you're not having sex. That's all it means. And so I could be abstinent, but looking at pornography, going to strip clubs, doing all these kinds of things, and I'm abstinent. But I'm truly not practicing chastity if I'm doing those things. I'm not using my body to glorify God. And so what chastity does is it doesn't eliminate our sexual attractions. It orders them according to the demands of authentic human love. And so you recognize the sexual goodness of another person, but you place their personal value above their sexual value. So it involves, what do I do with my eyes on my phone? What do I do with my imagination? What do I do with my words, my body? So it's that virtue of purity that encompasses the whole person, and through practicing that purity, we become free to see God, not only in heaven, but in this life right now, in ourselves, in our boyfriends, girlfriends, husbands, wives. You see God in others through that purity of heart. Celibacy simply means the state of not being married. And so if you have a religious who promises to practice poverty, chastity, and obedience, they're practicing this virtue of chastity through a celibate life of not entering into marriage. So priests practicing celibacy, also practicing that virtue of chastity. Married couples are not abstinent, but they are practicing chastity, or they should be, by the way they have reverence for the gift of sexuality within the sacrament of marriage. Through fidelity to one another, they're not using contraception, pornography, they're still practicing chastity, although they're not abstinent. So I hope running through those definitions, again, have been helpful.
Was it, Ruth?
Very interesting, but I missed his wife's name. What is it?
Kristalina.
Oh, okay. I thought it was Kristalina, and I thought, no, it was Angelina. So
you got it.
Tell me that.
Hey, Ruth, hang on the phone, will you? I'd like Thomas to give you a book, and you can pick any book you want from Catholic Answers, because I was so mean at the beginning of this call, and I'm going to feel bad about it all weekend. So will you hang on, and we'll give you a free book?
Okay.
All right. Well, she sounds very forgiving. I hope she forgives me. Marcia in Houston, Texas, listening on Guadalupe Radio. You are up next. Jason Everett is our guest. Go ahead with your question for Jason.
Hi. Thank you for taking my call.
Happy to.
I wanted, when I got married about almost 40 years ago, I did not realize that my husband was he would look at Playboy and masturbate in bed, and we never really had a very sexual life. I always considered our marriage an asexual. And then as we got older and our daughters were in their late teens, he would be found masturbating at the computer, which happened to be in our living room.
Oh.
So I decided to divorce him. He has since died. I consider myself a widow. And I never had a very fulfilling sex life. So I look at men and I wonder what it would be like with him, and I, fantasize about them. And I just want to know, how can I stop doing that and still remain chaste?
No. Very good question. The first thing I think to recognize is that this ache that you're having for authentic, intimate love is a good ache. And so you don't want to begin in a posture of shaming yourself for wanting something that was truly good, that you deserve to have, that you were, in a sense, robbed of, that you had a right to God's plan for human love in the sacrament of your marriage. And when your husband didn't practice it in his own life, it's right to feel that ache of like, why, God, why didn't I get what you wanted from me? And then now that, he has passed on, and I'm sure one day he'll be very grateful of the prayers that you send his way, now you're still longing for this. And that longing is not bad, but there's a physical using of other people that we need to guard ourselves from. But then we also overlook oftentimes the emotional using that we sometimes do of other people through thoughts of fantasy, where we're deriving pleasure from them and using them emotionally. So, well, where do we draw the line? Well, how do you contain? I can't just turn off my imagination. So what do? Here's my recommendation. Let's say you're out, you see an attractive gentleman, and your mind starts to wonder, wow, it'd really just be nice to be held by someone like that, and someone who cared about me and made me feel wanted and loved and desired and attractive, and you start to feel that ache. I just want you to hit the pause button, not to shame, but I want you, what I try to do is make a little sign of the cross on your forehead, nothing big, just a little like that, and remember the 4 parts of the cross. The first part is up, and so think of that, of saying thank you to God for that person's attractiveness. Thank you, God, for making that gentleman attractive. So you're praising God for the beauty that he created. You're recognizing goodness instead of being like, oh, sex is bad. thank you, God. Now that cross goes down, think of that as a moment of contrition. God, I'm sorry for the times I have lusted after others or used others in my imagination. Please create in me a clean heart. And so you're going from gratitude to a little contrition. Then the cross comes up. Think of it as going off to the side now, because that's where the cross goes. Look at his hand. Does he have a wedding ring? If he does, I want you to pray for him and his wife. No wedding ring? Pray for his future vocation. You're transforming now temptation into intercession. You're responding to the goodness of his body with love instead of use or lust. And then the last part of the cross leaves him, goes off to the other side. Think of this as reminding yourself, what is the ultimate union of love that I was created for? Was it an earthly embrace, or was it the heavenly embrace of God that awaits me in heaven if I'm faithful to him? So all earthly beauty just points us to the eternal reality of heaven that we're ultimately craving. And sometimes we grasp onto the earthly when in reality only the heavenly will satisfy us. And so run through that little thing in your heart. And if you can only remember one or two of those, that's fine. But gratitude, thank you, God, for making that gentleman attractive. I'm sorry for the times I've used them in my mind, but I pray for him. I'm responding in love. And then I remember, God, you ultimately are the love that I'm created for. And this earth, according to, I remember one saint, she said, this life is nothing but a long night in a bad inn. Like it's basically a long night in a really dumpy hotel. And that's a saint who had that to say about this life. So if we're thinking that we will find ultimate happiness in this life, we're wrong. God does not promise us happiness in this life. He doesn't. He promises us happiness in the next. And this road might be a valley of tears that we experience. And that ache that you've created for, you might get to experience that in this life. And I hope that you do. But if you don't, keep your eyes on heaven, because God will wipe every single tear from your eye and give you a fulfillment and a satisfaction that nothing on this earth could ever compare. And he will make up, the scriptures promise, God will make up for the years the locust has eaten. In other words, the locust destroys all these crops, but God says, I will restore the years the locust has eaten. Might that restoration happen in this life? Sometimes it does, but it's guaranteed it will at least happen in the next. So continue to take those desires, realize that they're good, lift them up to God, respond in love, and be patient with yourself. So I hope that's a lot, but I hope that's helpful.
Okay, Marcia?
Okay. Thank you.
Marcia, you know what? We have a book here called The Words of Eternal Life from Jimmy Akin, and I'd love to send it to you. So if you hang on, Thomas will get your address, and we'll send you that book.
Can I say one more thing, Cy?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I just finished interviewing Dr. Ed Sri, who's coming on in the next hour, about his book, Men, Women, and the Mystery of Love. And in this book, it's fantastic for singles or married couples, where he really goes into the nature of attraction, of sentiments, authentic friendship, how to distinguish sensual using versus just a sensual feeling. And really, through the lens of John Paul II, I think this would be a great book. It's real short. It's awesome. It's called Men, Women, and the Mystery of Love. And I think you'd get a lot out of it in terms of understanding the nature of sexual attractions, when those things are sinful and when that's just our human ache that is part of being human.
Marcia, again, thank you very, very much. And Dr. Sri will be on next hour, so you can hear what he has to say. Let's go to Twin Falls, Idaho. Simon in Twin Falls, Idaho, listening on Salt and Light Radio. Glad to have you, Simon. Go ahead with your question for Jason Evert.
Hey, Jason, this is me here. I had a question about teenagers dating. So if you have a daughter and is looking to start dating a guy, we sometimes have differences understanding what does she really mean when she says she want to date. Does she want to start having a relationship that is going to end up in marriage, or is just a friend to have ice cream together? But sometimes it gets really tense when you try to explain how you need to continue maintaining your chastity and at the same time have a relationship with this boy. So I want to know what's the best way to help your daughters understand you need to remain faithful to your faith, but at the same time enjoy your life. I don't know how that conversation will go without them thinking you are controlling and you're saying no dating at this time.
Yeah. Well, thank you for the call. I think part of it depends on the age of the girl, because if it's a teenage girl, she could be 19, in college, already starting to look forward to her career, serious marital discernment, ready to start dating, a lot of emotional maturity, great prospects of good Catholic guys on campus. Like, okay, great. I mean, she sounds like she's the right time. You got a 13-year-old on the other case who's all her classmates and other 8th graders are dating the other 8th grade boys, and why can't I go on a date with some boy when that boy boy has no idea, what dating is and what it's supposed to be. And so the answer would very much depend upon the age of the girl. But I think one important thing we've got to do is not just tell them, no, you can't date yet. We have to teach them how to date, when to date, who to date, and why to date. And so you could break it into those categories of like, look, I'm your ally in this. All I want as your dad is for you to find a man who loves you as much as I love your mother, and I am totally behind you on this, and I'm your ally, and I just want to help you weed out the losers. Because you know what? There's some real good guys out there, but there's 100 counterfeits for every one gem. And you want to find the right guy for you, and my job is just to try to encourage you to find that, not settle for less. So why to date? Well, the purpose of dating is to find a spouse. It's not because you're bored, not because you're lonely. It's to find a spouse. It's a serious time of marital discernment, not recreation because I'm lonely and everybody else has a boyfriend. So do I have a good reason to date? Also, do I even know what I'm looking for in a potential mate? And if I know what I'm looking for, am I living out those values in my own life right now? Also, realistically, when to date? Like, is this the time? Because even if you meet a great guy in high school, great, he could go to Louisiana State University next year and you're going to Thomas Aquinas in California, you're going to have some like long distance 4-year relationship. Well, this guy's 2,000 miles away, then he could get a job in New Orleans and you get one in the Bay Area. Where do you go from there? And so logistically, is this a smart prospect? And so one thing I'd recommend, my wife and I wrote a book for single girls, teenage college girls, to navigate through the single years of life. It's called, actually, I have a copy sitting here. It's called How to Find Your Soulmate Without Losing Your Soul, 21 Secrets for Women. And so it's just for girls. The first chapter is the top 10 guys to avoid. So a lot of girls enjoy reading that chapter. Give this book to her maybe. Write a note in it to her of how much you love her and you support her and you just want to help her find the love she deserves. But take a good look at that age. If she's in junior high, I don't think there's a point of dating. If she's in high school, honestly, I don't think there's a point of dating in high school either. And the happiest high school students I've met in the world, and I've met about 2 million of them, were the students who said they didn't really see a point of dating in high school. So there shouldn't be any rush, and the whole purpose of dating is to find a spouse. It's a lot poured out to you in a short amount of time, but I recommend the How to Find Your Soulmate book. And we also have the website chastity.com with all kinds of resources on dating and parenting and things like that.
Simon, I hope that was helpful to you. That was a lot to process, but don't worry. Ruth will probably call and we'll repeat it all again in a few minutes. So we got to take a quick break.
You have to send her another book.
We'll be right back. I know. I owe Ruth another book. If she calls back, just send her whatever book she wants, Thomas. We'll be right back.
This is Archbishop Paul Coakley of the Archdiocese of Oklahoma City, and you're listening to Catholic Answers Live.
Do you love praying for people? Have you ever wanted to use your gift of prayer to share Jesus with others and build up the body of Christ? Start a public prayer station with St. Paul Street Evangelization. Listen to people's needs, pray with them, or invite them to meet you at church. St. Paul Street Evangelization can help you get started. Find out how at streetevangelization.com. That's streetevangelization.com.
EWTN Global Catholic Network is the largest religious media network in the world. 11 global TV channels, English and Spanish radio networks with over 500 AM and FM radio affiliates, one of the largest Catholic websites in the world, dozens of podcasts every week, social media, electronic and print news services, and EWTN Publishing. EWTN is the global Catholic network. For more about EWTN, visit EWTN.com.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. It is an all-superstar lineup. Next hour, Dr. Edward Sri will be here with us, and we're going to talk about the virtues, and a fun thing to talk about on a Friday because as Jason Everett is talking with us about a specific virtue this hour, the virtue of chastity, and the way that how liberating it is, really, and genuinely liberating. It's not, it's not just the church being bossy to teach us chastity, or Jesus being bossy to teach us chastity. It's a road to freedom, and it turns out all of the virtues are that. And it's not just Christians who know it, and Dr. Sri is a great person to talk about it. So join us for that second hour. This hour, as I said, Jason Everett here to talk about the virtue of chastity. And now we go to Carol in Mississippi. Carol, are you there with us?
Yes.
All right, Carol, go ahead with your question for Jason.
Yes, Carol, I'm calling for a friend of mine She cannot use the telephone because she's incarcerated. So, but she's got a really big question. She's a new Christian. She's working very, very hard at learning and following the Catholic faith.
Okay.
She's really feeling drawn by the Lord. The one problem is that she's transgender. She was born a male. And she's really torn about this. She wants to know what the church's stance is on transgender people.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. No, the first thing to really assure her of is trans individuals who experience gender dysphoria, who identify as transgender, are first and foremost beloved children of God. And God did not make a mistake in creating them. He doesn't love them any less because they experience gender dysphoria or choose to identify as this or as that. God loves them. That's the first and foremost thing. Their identity technically is not trans. Their identity is a beloved child of God. Because if we put, our gender identities at the forefront of our human identity, it's kind of like putting our sexual attractions first. Like, I am this sexual attraction. Well, you might experience that sexual attraction, but who you really are is God's beloved son or daughter. Now, the Catholic Church does teach, as science does, that humans are a sexually dimorphic species. You are either male nor female, that gender is not a fluid thing, that it is not a social construct imposed upon us because of outdated gender-rigid stereotypes. And a lot of young people, especially growing up in today's culture, experience gender dysphoria, and the culture tells them, well, hey, if you think you're trans, and then you're trans, and undergo top surgery or puberty blockers or cross-sex hormone therapies, transition, then you'll really find, a home in your body, because obviously you kind of got the wrong body. But the fact is, our sex, we are sexed by literally every single cell. The scientists have found more than 1,559 sex-specific genes, meaning your kidneys are male and female, your esophagus is male or female, your bone marrow, your blood cells. We are sexed down to every individual cell. That's why you can't change your sex, because you'd have to change every cell and even the human soul. Now, these scientific facts don't necessarily bring a lot of consolation to somebody who experiences gender dysphoria, but what they've found is individuals who go through this whole gender reconstruction surgery and gender affirmation surgery become 19 times as likely to commit suicide. And some people say, oh, well, that's just because they're not being affirmed and accepted. But I spoke to a doctor recently, he's an anesthesiologist, and he said, in my hospital, I've told my fellow clinicians that don't even approach me to give anesthesia to a student or to a person who's going to undergo a sex change operation, because he says, I've seen the medical charts. I see what's going on between the autism, between the obsessive compulsive disorder, the anxiety disorders, this history of sexual abuse, the broken family. A lot of times, transgender inclinations are very often one point on a whole constellation of mental health challenges or sufferings these individuals have experienced. And if they feel they can just get control of their gender, they feel a sense of control of their life. And people say, well, why won't you just let them identify as what they are? It's the transgender movement that's refusing to allow them to accept their true identity as beloved sons or daughters of God. And so continue to love your friend. Continue to assure this individual that God loves them, created them, has a plan for them. And I'd really encourage you, we have a podcast called Lust is Boring. And if you go to Lust is Boring on iTunes, Spotify, or whatever, you can listen to some episodes that I've had with individuals who experience gender dysphoria who share their stories. And so you can check that out. We also have an interview with Father Malachi where he talks about what the church teaches on transgenderism. Listen to that. And then lastly, if you remember anything, just go to chastity.com/gender. So chastity.com/gender. We have a library of resources on this, videos. We've got websites of people who are detransitioning right now. I know a friend in Canada, he said he knows more than 100 people who are detransitioning. He said right now, they're not in the mainstream, but he said in a few years, it is going to be like a tsunami. Right now, it seems like the shoreline has gone out. It's like, well, you Catholics are on the wrong side of history. But there is a wave that is about to come in to hit our culture of people who have bought off on this lie of gender theory and embraced it and realized it was never the answer to the issues they had in life. And so you can experience some of their testimonies by going to chastity.com/gender. Lots of great research and library information you could look at yourself and then also share with your friend.
Thanks, Carol. And just so you know, Carol, our donors make it possible for us to send things to folks who are in prison. So if you would like us to send some stuff to your friend in prison, just send us an email. Send it to My Attention Cy at radio@catholic.com, and we're happy to send any kind of reading material or whatever's allowed there. radio@catholic.com. Oh my gosh, there's so many calls, and I'm realizing there's only a few minutes left, so I'm going to keep moving.
We'll try to go fast.
I'll try to go fast. Sherry in Washington, listening on KHSF. Go ahead, Sherry, with your question.
Oh, thank you for taking my call. I have been single since 1987. I filed my divorce away. I had my annulment. It took a whole week to get it because I was not married according to the church. In 1995, I came back to the church and have been back ever since. I have gone to several websites. I guess to tell you, today I am 76 years old. And I would really like to find a person, a man who is Catholic, who would be willing to honor me as a human being. Where do I go to do that? I've been to several websites to no avail. I guess I don't know where to go to find a companion to help me through these waning years of my life.
Yeah, well, thank you for your faithfulness to God and wanting to find a good, godly man. As you had mentioned, there are some good sites out there, whether it's Catholic Singles, Catholic Match, Ave Maria Singles. You've got CatholicChemistry.com. Usually the bigger websites are going to have more people, but the quality of how much they embrace their faith varies widely. Some of the smaller sites like Catholic Chemistry or Ave Maria Singles, I think, tend to have more solid, smaller pools of people living their faith, so you could maybe check out those two if you haven't already. But one thing I recommend, start going to daily mass. If you're not already, find a parish or a couple parishes where you stop by for the 8 a.m. mass or whatever, and you might find many people in your age demographic. Get involved in the parish, whether it's a pro-life ministry, and just focus. It's Curtis Martin. Often says that instead of trying to run after and find the right person for you, he says just look at God and run after God with everything that you have. And after a while of running, look beside you and see who's keeping up with you. That's the type of person you want to be with. And so I'd say to try to fix your gaze upon God, encountering him, going to Adoration Chapel at your parish more often, daily mass, getting involved in pro-life work. And oftentimes it's when we fully give ourselves to God in that way that we put ourselves in places where we're more likely to meet the people who share our values. So I hope that gives you a couple new thoughts to consider on this search.
Sherry, thank you so much. I'm going to move quickly just to try to be fair to everybody. I'm going to go to Annalisa in Florida watching on YouTube. Annalisa, you got to be really quick with this question.
Sure, I'll be extremely quick. Thank you so much for having me on the air, Jason. Thank you so much for your fruitful ministry. I just had a quick question. What would be the most compassionate and efficient way to talk to our Protestant brothers and sisters or non-denominational Christian brothers and sisters who talk about premarital sex and say, if you're really in love with the person, then that's okay. That falls under, God's natural law. I just wanted to see what the best response would be to something like that.
Well, if they're Protestants, they believe in the Bible, and the Bible is very clear that fornication is against God's plan for our sexuality, which is sex prior to marriage. So if they're interested in the biblical evidence, which I probably have a hunch they might not be, you could show the verses, out of Corinthians from St. Paul and go into that route. But try to approach it maybe from more of a human perspective. The church's teachings is that it just encourages us to be sexually honest with our bodies, that the total gift of your body should correspond to the total gift of your person. And so when a husband and a wife make love, their body is saying, I give myself totally to you. I am all yours. They're speaking the wedding vows in and through their bodies. But if you have a couple who's not married, they're giving this total loan of their body with hopes for the future without a corresponding total gift of the person. So the church's teachings on this are just super simple. And it's just that love, marriage, sex, and babies go together and in that order. And when we start flipping around the priorities as a culture, the civilization itself begins to crumble, and women typically pay the higher price when it's taken out of order. I wish we had more time. Check out chastity.com. We got lots of resources there. And the new website, we got missionariesofchastity.com too.
Missionariesofchastity.com is the new website. What happens there, Jason? What do you find at Missionaries of Chastity?
People can get free chastity resources shipped anywhere in the world to them to help them share the message with young people. So check it out, missionariesofchastity.com.
Praise God for that. Or chastity.com, and you're out on the road speaking again. So if people would like to have you as a speaker, they can get you again.
Yeah, starting up full swing and next week.
All right, very good. Thanks, Jason. Thanks very, very much.
Thanks for having me on.
Coming up, second half of our Superstar Friday, Dr. Edward Sri will be here. We're going to talk about the virtues and living in freedom. We'll do that right after this on Catholic Answers Live. Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. I am Cy Kellett, your host, and as promised, Dr. Edward Sri with us this hour, and we're going to talk about the virtues under the kind of the title, Freedom to Love. And I think there are many of us who would like to be more free to love, frankly. We know that there are things that are keeping us from being fully loving in the way that God would like us to be. And if you have questions in that regard, this hour is perfect for you. 888-318-7884, 888-318-7884. Dr. Edward Sri is a theologian, author, very well-known Catholic speaker. You probably know him, if you know him from nowhere else, at least from Symbolon, the series that explains the Catholic faith. He's written a whole bunch of best-selling books, including No Greater Love, A Biblical Walk Through Christ's Passion, Into His Likeness, Be Transformed as a Disciple, and probably the book that will most inform our conversation today, The Art of Living, the Cardinal Virtues, and the Freedom to Love. Dr. Edward Sri, thank you for being with us.
Thanks for having me back.
Now, I didn't mention, but I will mention now because I want to ask you about it, that you are also back with Focus, the Fellowship of Catholic University Students, of which you are a founder and now have returned to it as the vice president. How's Focus going, especially given the crazy times we live in?
You know, it's crazy on so many levels, right? You've got, of course, the COVID situation, which makes life on college campus, even lonelier for many college students.
Oh, yeah.
All last year, I have to tell you, we had the biggest growth in Bible study participants than ever before. And I think it was because we were the only show in town. Everything was shut down. Nobody had any activities, and we were out there. All of our missionaries, we have 1,000 missionaries on over 180 campuses, and
wow.
It was just awesome to go out and get to meet people that would probably be too busy to ever do a Bible study. But this year, they had their sports canceled or their fraternity activities canceled or whatever, and it provided a little window into opportunities for evangelization, which has been the one blessing from all this.
God finds a way, huh?
Yeah.
888-318-7884 is our number. So the book is The Art of Living, the Cardinal Virtues, and the Freedom to Love. So what's the relationship, if we could just get a real quick start from you, is the relationship between virtuous living and living in freedom?
Yeah, we can't just love people. I think that's a myth that people think. Well, I can just love. Anyone can say I love you. Some people might sincerely mean it, but it's only the person that possesses virtue that's actually capable of loving. So here's the analogy I use. I was just back in the Chicago area recently, visiting my folks, and my father's a retired orthopedic surgeon. And as a kid, I grew up really learning a lot about, medicine and surgery from him. He'd take me and I'd meet his patients. He'd show me x-rays. I'd look at anatomy books, and I was always fascinated about surgery. But let's say, Cy, I heard you needed surgery, and I said, I'm passionate about surgery. I've got strong feelings about surgery. I love surgery. Cy, here, get on the table. Let me do your surgery. Would you let me perform that procedure on you?
I most certainly would not.
I'm not that kind of doctor, right? I don't have the skills of a surgeon, right? Everybody gets that. But how many young people enter into dating relationships? How many people enter into marriage without ever asking the question of virtue? Does this person have the skill to love me? Because it requires a lot more than passion and feelings and emotions to actually love someone, So here's the deal. To the extent that I'm virtuous, to the extent that I'm generous and I'm kind and I'm patient, I can do generous, kind, and patient things to love the people in my life. But to the extent I lack in those virtues, I'll do selfish things that hurt my wife.
Yeah.
I'll do impatient things that hurt my kids. I will do unkind things that hurt the people in my office, right? So we're all a work in progress, right? We have some virtues, but we fall short in other ways. I used to think virtue was like this kind of nice little thing for me, it's like a badge, kind of in the Boy Scouts you get a badge, and I can grow in humility and fear of the Lord and fortitude, and it was nice little badges to be a good Boy Scout for Jesus. It was good for my soul and my spiritual life, and it is. But as I've grown older and looking at the great tradition of the virtues, I realized that virtue is important not just for me, but for the people in my life. My wife needs me to be virtuous.
Yes.
My children need me to be virtuous. My friends need me to be virtuous so that I can love them. I'm not free to love without virtue. Virtue gives me the freedom to love.
Well, here's the problem we run up against then, and I would like to get your take on this. we don't talk about the virtues. We don't teach the virtues. I mean, I don't know that they're teaching the virtues in school. I don't know that many of us as parents are equipped to teach the classical virtues to our children. So what's the kind of consequence of that, and how do we recover from that?
Yeah, I'm going to tell you something really personal here. So tonight, in fact, right after this interview, I'm going to take my 7-year-old daughter to her first piano lesson. I'm really excited. And we're going to go to this woman that I think she's almost 90 years old. She's an incredible legend here in Denver. And she taught my son, who's now at college. I just dropped Paul off at college. And Paul, he grew up, he was very gifted at piano. He learned, a lot by ear, but he needed teachers to help him get to play at a higher level. And over time, Paul was taught by this wonderful, loving teacher, but was also incredibly demanded an hour of practice every day. And, and that she would just spend weeks on Yankee Doodle, and get him to play with the right finger curved in the right way and press down the right way. And I was thinking, oh, he's at home playing Mozart, and now we're going back to Yankee Doodle with this teacher. What's going on here? We're going backwards. And she's like, no, when you touch the key, you got to touch it like this. And this is, and then when Beethoven played, he practiced like this, and Bach designed his pieces like this. And at first I was a little taken aback. I was like, wow, this is a lot. But over time, I began to see that he was going through a beautiful apprenticeship, that he was learning from this master woman who had mastered the great tradition of piano playing throughout the centuries. And he was coming in contact with all the great, pianists and composers in history through her. And it was a beautiful apprenticeship. And within, about 18 months, he was starting to play with orchestras and performing piano concertos. It was incredible. But here's the analogy. This is really important here, is imagine if there's a child, like your son, or let's just say a child in your town who's 5 or 7 years old and wanted to play piano, and the parents just came and said, oh, here's what we're going to do. We're going to buy you a piano, and you can go in that room over there and figure out how to be your own piano player.
Yeah.
And you just play however you want and express yourself, and the school hears, oh, you want to play piano? Oh, we applaud you. You're a special piano player. Do whatever you want. And the mayor is like, oh, I heard you want to play piano, young man. Go for it. And that's all this kid got.
Right.
And he just practiced all on his own. What would happen when that kid goes off to college and he hears from all these other peers who've been playing Mozart and Beethoven and Chopin, and he's like, whoa, I've never heard piano playing like that. How did you learn how to do that? And they all said, oh, we had teachers. We had piano teachers. Really? There were piano teachers? And how do you know which notes to play? Oh, we have this thing called music. There's, music here. And he's like, what is that? That looks like just a bunch of lines and dots. And he's never been taught the tradition of music, and he doesn't know who Beethoven and Mozart is. How would someone like that feel? If that were you, wouldn't you feel cheated? You'd feel like, how come no one ever gave this to me? I've just been sitting here trying to figure out how to play piano all by myself. No one ever taught me.
Yes, right.
I share this side because I hear from so many people, young people, that'll say things like, they hear theology about it, hear church's teachings on chastity, and they say, why did no one ever teach me that? I hear young married couples, they get into marriage, they have all these struggles, they never heard the church's teaching on marriage. How come no one ever taught me that? They're raising kids, and they don't know that there's this whole tradition on how to do parenting. That's not the latest self-help book at Barnes & Noble or on Amazon, but it's a great tradition of 2,000 years on how to raise children in character and in faith, and no one ever taught me. I hear this from so many young people, like, how come no one ever taught me? We've lost the art of living. That's what Pope Benedict says. Our crisis today isn't just that we don't know the Bible or the faith. That's bad enough. We don't know the basics of how to live life. We don't know how to live friendship, dating relationships, marriage, family, raising children. We don't even get bathrooms right in our culture, right? We don't even know the basics anymore. How do we impart the art of living to the next generation? That's what I'm passionate about trying to get into in this book.
888-318-7884, the number. If you have questions about the art of living and learning those virtues that so many of us, maybe we failed our children. Maybe you are among those who have been failed in being taught those things. If you have questions, 888-318-7884. We're going to take a break, and we'll come back with your calls for Dr. Sri before I send you off to the break. Why We're Catholic, Trent's very, very popular book here at Catholic Answers. It's available in softcover in a case of 20. at a deeply discounted price right now and as an ebook on Audible. And you can get those copies. And I think a good part of why it's available right now is that lots of folks kind of treat this, and I'm sure it has to do with the cycles of the school year and all of that, as the time to start inquiring about the Catholic Church. If they've been interested in coming in, if they've thought, maybe I'm being called to be a Christian, maybe I'm called to Catholic faith. And so they'll start the RCIA process now or that kind of thing. So you can visit whywe'recatholic.com. And maybe you want to give a case of these to your RCIA program at work. Maybe you want to give them to the young people heading back to school, or maybe you want to give somebody an ebook or Audible version. Just go to whywearecatholic.com.
Miss a show? Make sure to catch up by downloading the podcast, available online at Catholic.com.
Underwriting for Catholic Answers Live is provided by Real Estate for Life. Real Estate for Life connects homebuyers and sellers to real estate agents while supporting pro-life organizations. On the web at realestateforlife.org.
The Aquinas Writing Advantage program is part of Homeschool Connections' set of online courses for your Catholic homeschool. Homeschool Connections' website is homeschoolconnections.com.
St. Hildegard of Bingen was a mystic, an abbess, a botanist, a saint, and a doctor of the Church.
Matthew Bunsen and the Doctors of the Church.
Hildegard had her first visions at the age of 3, which she called the shade of the living light. She later wrote about them in works declared by St. Bernard of Clairvaux to be from God. Pope Benedict XVI agreed when he named her only one of 4 doctors of the Church who are women in 2012.
For more about the Doctors of the Church, visit doctorsofthechurch.com.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. I'm Cy Kellett, your host. Our guest this hour is Dr. Edward Sri. And if you enjoyed Symbolon, and I think many people did, I think that was one of those kind of special grace moments when Symbolon came out that many people drew close to the faith at that time. Dr. Sri is the person who made that. Maybe you've been affected in your life by the Fellowship of Catholic University Students. He, along with Curtis Martin, is one of the founders of that. And the author of a whole bunch of books. And today we're talking about living in freedom, particularly perhaps you're interested in the freedom to love. And virtue is a good part of that. If you have questions about that, and as I want to keep stressing, you don't have to be Catholic, you don't have to be Christian. If you got a question about the virtues, you want to understand what we're talking about when we're talking about how living the virtues sets you free, you are welcome to call 888-318-7884. All right, so... maybe what we need is a basic definition. What is virtue? I don't want to go too far just assuming that everybody listening knows what is virtue or that I remember.
Yeah. I'll give you the catechism definition first, then I'll unpack it. So the Catechism 1803 explains virtue is a habitual disposition to do the good. So it's not just, I did something good once, but it's like it's a part of me. I tend to do the good. That's just who I am. So it's a habit, you know. Maybe another way of looking at it, in a very basic way, I say it's kind of like the life skills you need, the basic life skills you need to live life well, to live with excellence, so that you can love God and love people. But there's 4 characteristics that the Catechism and the tradition describes as needed for virtue. So it's not, again, like I'll use an analogy. It's like a PGA golfer, a professional golfer. They can, they have consistency. That's the first characteristic, right? They can hit the ball down the fairway almost every time. They're really, really good. Second thing is they do it with ease. It's not hard for them. It's just like second nature. They've done it so much. It's a part of who they are. They do it promptly, so they love to practice. They're ready to always play and give their best. They do it promptly and they do it with joy. They're good at it, and so there's joy that comes with it. If you put me on the golf course, I might hit the ball down the fairway every once in a while, but I'm far from consistent. Many times it's going in the pond, or the forest or something, and so I'm not consistent, and it's not second nature for me. I have to take tons. I'm one of those guys who takes tons of practice swings, and it's not easy for me. And when I play, there's not much joy. So. But I think that's what we want to think about is, when I'm thinking about a virtue, it's my disposition. It's a part of who I am. And we know people like that. You just know, you have certain friends in your life that, if you ever needed a favor, they're just always going to do whatever they can to help you. Then there's other people in your life, you're friends with them, but they're just not that generous. They're not going to go out of their way and bend over backwards, and you kind of just know, I better not go ask them. We want to be the kind of people that are dependable, reliable toward others, and these are the characteristics that make us the kind of people that are, that can give the best of ourselves to others.
Well, okay, so let's say I don't have a virtue. There's some particular virtue that I'm lacking, or maybe I just feel like I'm not a virtuous person at all. How do I get virtues?
Yeah, well, there's three things. I have a whole chapter on this in the book, and it's not my ideas. This, again, just comes right from the heart of the Catholic tradition. Three things we need to do to grow in virtue. First, we have to kind of just learn about the virtues, educate ourselves about them. So simply listening to this interview right now is going to be the first step in helping grow in virtue. Learning about it, like you can read the Catechism, read the Bible. There's my book, of course, you can read to learn, systematically walking through the virtues, reading the lives of the saints and seeing their example of virtue. This is what we want to fill our minds with. If I'm just filling my mind with just random stuff on social media, that's not going to help me. It's not going to help me be a better person. But if I fill my mind with the saints, I fill my mind with what the virtues are, that's helpful. I'll tell you this, whenever I'm teaching the virtues, my wife can tell. She'll go, are you teaching the virtues again? She can just tell I'm a little more on my game. I'm just a little better. I'm a little kinder.
That's interesting.
It's fun because that's what's on my mind, and so if all that's on your mind is ESPN, or whatever, it's not going to help you. And I think it's important that we have a regular diet of meditating on the life of Jesus, thinking about his virtues and how I can imitate them, learning about the virtues and how they all fit together. That's the real first step to growing in virtue.
All right, I'd be willing to do that. You know what? The more I'm a Boston Celtics fan, the more I read about the Boston Celtics, the more I watch the Boston Celtics. I still can't become a Boston Celtic. I just can't do it. I haven't been able to make it yet. But I could probably, if I worked at basketball, I maybe couldn't become Marcus Smart, but I could be a better basketball player than I am. I can make progress.
Yeah, and that's the second thing I would bring out is, so we have to learn about the virtues themselves. So I know what to aim for. You realize, oh, wow, I didn't realize that vice, that weakness of mine hurts other people. So I want to be better. I want to get better at it. But then the second thing I need to do is effort. I have to put effort into trying to change. So that's the second key. There's a great tradition in the church that says, if you want to root out a weakness, don't just go after the weakness, go after the positive virtue. So, for example, I'll just give an example. Let's say I tend to be selfish and always want to have my way. I like having my preference. So the next time I'm with my friends and they're trying to decide what movie to go see or what restaurant we should go to, I'm usually the first to say, let's do this, and I want to get my way. I'm going to, rather than take the lead, I'm going to just sit back and ask them, hey, what do you guys want to do? And they mention a restaurant that I don't really want to go to, but I'm going to, that's fine, let's go. And I die to myself, and I'm not eating something that's bad for me. I'm not doing something sinful, but I'm just dying to my preference. That's like exercising my moral muscle to practice self-denial and other things. Or let's say I tend to dominate conversation. I talk a lot all the time with my friends. So next time I'm with people, instead of talking a lot, I'll just ask them questions. So how was your day? And let them talk. How are things going? And learn from them. I practice the opposite virtue of honoring them, engaging them in conversation. There's so many things that we can go after in life, to in the context of ordinary friendships and just family life, that's about dying to myself and my tendencies to serve other people. So I think that's the second key, is to go after really trying to live the virtues that overcome our weaknesses.
You want to give us the third one, or do we have to buy the book to get the third one?
I'll give you the third one because it's the most important.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, I want that one.
You have to rely on God's grace, to learn to rely on God's grace. Because you can study all the virtues, memorize Aquinas, and you can try as hard as you might, and still you're going to run up short, because we're all weak and we're human. We have original sin. We're just not going to be perfect angels. We're just not. And so I need to learn to rely on God's grace and allow him to change me. And God's grace is powerful. The worst kind of weaknesses and sins and bad habits, even addictions, can be changed. We can be changed and really healed. That's what Jesus wants to do. He doesn't want us just to like obey commandments. He wants to heal us deeply, and he wants to root out all those weaknesses we have. But in the end, only he can do that. And I have to learn to rely on him. And that's through prayer, that's through the sacraments, and it's through a lot of humility of just humbly going, Jesus, I can't do this. I tried. I need you. Help me, Jesus.
Again, Dr. Edward Sri is our guest, the author of many books, including the one that we're kind of focusing on today, The Art of Living, the Cardinal Virtues and the Freedom to Love. If you are looking for more freedom to love, this is the place to call, 888-318-7884. So I would like you to clarify something that you have been talking about a bit, but and you've kind of gotten near it, but why isn't it enough just to do the right thing? Why do I need to have the development of the virtue so that my very desires and my emotional life change and become healed, so to speak?
Yeah, I think sometimes people think like the Christian life is just about, okay, don't break the commandments.
Yes.
Don't get a traffic violation or something, but the Christian life is really about taking on the character of Christ, taking on his virtues. It's the imitation of Christ. And so Jesus doesn't want us just to do the right thing in the end. He wants us to want to do the right thing. Here's an analogy. It's like I remember when I first asked my wife on a date, I didn't want her just to say yes. I wanted her to want to go on a date with me. Like imagine if I said, yeah, you'd want to go on a date, and she's like, well, it's Lent, so I guess I can give this up and go out. Or, I'm really sorry for you, so yeah, I'll do this as an act of charity. That would be so disappointing. It's like I want her heart. I don't want her just to like go out with me, and Jesus wants our hearts. That's one thing to keep in mind. So like he wants us to desire it. So what happens is we're human beings that have noble desires, but we also have a lot of fallen desires, and our emotions can get in the way of doing the right thing. And so I might in the end like not lose it with my kids. Like let's say they're fighting and I'm ready to blow. And my wife just says, you better calm down. And I don't yell, but the kids can tell I am really mad.
Right.
And they're scared of me. I don't want them to be scared around me. So like, I didn't blow up. I didn't commit a sin, but I didn't respond in the best way. I should have calmly gone to them and say, hey, children, can't do that. This is the consequence if you persist, and calmly, and but I'm like, I'm steaming here, and they can see they feel the tension, like that. Like I don't want them to experience that,
Right.
I think there's many things where Jesus wants to get down to the roots of our emotions, so that we respond. That's the ideal, is when we respond with the proper emotions to the chaos and hurts and disappointments and frustrations and things that happen in life.
Again, our number 888-318-7884. I'll be honest with you, I think one of the main obstacles to this, but you teach young people and you know better than I, but it seems to me that this is one of the things I see, that there's a sense of you can't really change, Dr. Sri. You can't really change. You're always going to be what you are. You can't do it. And that this kind of Christian hope, this Christian faith, the sense that, well, actually God will do it in you if you ask for it, and if you are willing to go do those things that help with the change, you can. But what do we say to a world that says, nah, that's not true. You're not really ever going to change?
I think there's two lies of the devil that are spoken to us in those moments. On one hand, there's the lie of self-condemnation, to say, I'm never going to change. I've been trying to change for so long.
Oh, yeah.
I've had this addiction. I've had this problem. I just have this weakness, and I'm I'm falling into despair and self-condemnation. I am horrible. I will never change. This is never going to get better. That's the devil trying to get us to fall into despair. And And those voices are never from God. God is always there to help. He's always patient, so gentle whenever we fall and stumble. And it's precisely even in uniting our weakness in those moments and say, hey, this is the best I could do here in this moment, Lord. I tried. I probably would have done worse without your grace, but I need more of your grace if I'm ever going to do better. Like that act of humility is part of our growing. Like even if I may not have succeeded on the thing, I was trying not to lose my temper, or try not to fall into lust, or tried not to whatever, fall into pride. But even just offering up my humility is a great gift. There's something growing in me. I'm growing in humility. That's a good thing. So God's still present to me, and I should never listen to that voice of the devil that's getting me to fall in discouragement. But I would say there's something else out there in the culture where the devil speaks through. And that's to kind of say, oh, you Christians have this high standard, and, that's impossible. You can never rise to that. And that's another lie of the devil.
It is.
Saints have told us they've been transformed in Jesus Christ, and we can be too.
If you need some help with that transformation, if you'd like some practical help on how to gain the virtues so that you can be free to love and free to do the good and be good, 888-318-7884, 888-31-TRUTH.
Catholic Answers Live.
Here's a question. Is it really possible to be friends with someone who died 2,000 years ago? Maybe the problem is that we've grown way too comfortable with the story of Jesus. Nice man, right? Taught us to love one another, said not to judge people. We celebrate his birthday every year. It's time to put away this small, safe version of Jesus, says Cy Kellett. Nobody that bland could have transformed the world. In A Teacher of Strange Things, Cy presents Jesus Christ undiluted by sentiment, with all his radical words and deeds uncensored. Do you know someone, your son or daughter perhaps, or maybe your mom or dad, who needs the friendship of Jesus Christ? Do you? Order your copy of A Teacher of Strange Things by visiting shop.catholic.com today or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Catholic Answers is doing it again. We're holding our 7th annual Apologetics Conference this September in beautiful San Diego, California, and we'd like to see you there. Join us September 23rd to 26th for a lively and inspiring conference with an all-star lineup of speakers guaranteed to jumpstart your faith. It's a great chance to meet all your favorite Catholic Answers apologists and very special guests as we spend 4 days talking about worshiping and adoring our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. This is where it all begins. Don't miss what promises to be the event of the season. Join us this September for a conference that is sure to ignite, inspire, and inform your faith. Seats are still available, but they're going fast. Visit CatholicAnswersConference.com or call 888-291-8000 to register.
Does the church have too many rules? Join me, Dr. David Anders, as we answer your questions right here on Called to Communion, Monday at 2 p.m. Eastern. Now, back to Catholic Answers Live.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. I'm Cy Kellett, your host, and Dr. Edward Sri is our guest. Is this your latest book, Dr. Sri, The Art of Living, the Cardinal Virtues, and the Freedom to Love?
Yes, it is. It just came out here. So really excited. It's been a project I've been working on for, in many ways, like 10, 15 years. I wrote articles on this about 10 years ago, and a lot of people said, you need to put a book together. And I've been wanting to do it, and I've been pecking away at it here and there. And finally, this last, 2020 gave me a little more free time. So I was able to finish this one. This is really on my heart, though, because this is a book that's not just about the Catholic faith. I've written many things about defending the faith and all that. This is about really living it deeply. If I really want to be the man God wants me to be, the husband He wants me to be, the father He wants me to be, if I want to raise my kids in the virtues that God wants them, to have, I need to know this great tradition. And it's sad. I mean, I would argue that, most people in the world don't know the 4 cardinal virtues, Right. And even the Catholics that might know them, they wouldn't really know how they're all connected together.
Right.
And there's beautiful wisdom on how to live life, and it's just unfortunate because, again, as Pope Benedict said, we in this modern secular era, we haven't just lost faith, we've lost the basics of how to live life. We don't know how to live life anymore. And he calls it that's where I got the title of the book. It's from him. He says, we've lost the art of living, and what we need to do is give that back. So that's what I'm trying in this small way here.
888-318-7884 is the number. If there's some virtue that you are struggling with that you would like help with, if you'd like some help in sharing the teaching of the virtues with your children or with others, you are welcome to call 888-318-7884, 888-318-7884. So you're a parent. You just said you have a 7-year-old, and you got one that you just sent off to or second year of college. I think that's what you said. Second year of college?
Well, second child to send off to college.
Oh, second child. I gotcha. Yeah.
Yep.
So how do you teach over the course of that time that you have these children, how do you teach the virtues at the different ages, at the different stages of life?
Well, I'll say it's a lot easier to teach the virtues in a classroom and just talk about them out here. That's easy. Here you go. This is what Aquinas says. And, it's a lot harder when you're trying to impart the virtues, because in the end, you can't just read about the virtues in a book. You learn about the virtues in a community. And so this is the daunting thing, is that my children will learn virtue and vice. Number one place is going to be from their mother and their father. And I'll only speak for the father. I know the father has many weaknesses. It's so funny. Like you'll see one of my kids, like one of my teenagers may get angry at their younger brother, and then they're raising their voice and getting frustrated, and I'll raise my voice and say, "Why are you getting angry?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, it's because you're imitating your dad's bad temper."
Yes.
So they imitate. Now, hopefully they will imitate our virtues too. So but that's the number one place where they learn it. That's not going to be from a textbook. It's not going to be from me telling them, be patient. It's really by watching mom and dad and the way they live, and then the tone that we establish at home. That's the most important thing. Now, there's certain moments, of course, where you're instructing, especially when they're younger, on this is why this is good, this is why you treat someone this way, and this is what's fair, all those things, so that's certainly important. But it really is the lived experience. But I think that's why it's important for those of us that are adults. We want to surround ourselves with a virtuous community, so it's important that we find friends that are, I love being with people that I know are more virtuous than I, and I'm so thankful I've got many friends that are smarter than I am, wiser than I am, more generous, kind, because they just make me better, that's what happens, like in sports. You get better when you have to play. Like one of my kids just played this big soccer tournament, and they played like 2 leagues higher in this tournament, and they got slaughtered like 7-0, 7-1. But they learn from that experience. Now you don't want that to happen all the time, but they, I think when they get to the regular season, they're going to be playing regular teams this weekend. They're actually going to probably be better because they learn from players, watching players competing, rubbing up against players that are just better than they are, and we need that in life as well.
888-318-7884, the number. Our guest is Dr. Edward Sri, and the new book is The Art of Living, the Cardinal Virtues and the Freedom to Love. 888-318-7884. Your call is very, very welcome here. And maybe this the virtues are something that you struggle with. Maybe the virtues are something you'd like to help communicating to others. You're very, very welcome. Why are they called the cardinal virtues? You said, I bet many Christians don't even know the 4 cardinal virtues. I think that's what you said.
Yes.
Why are they called the cardinal virtues?
Okay, so is based off a Latin word that means hinge. And the idea is that the whole virtuous life, our whole lives, in a sense, hinge on these 4 virtues, and so these are the 4 natural virtues. You have the 3 supernatural virtues of faith, hope, and charity. But on the natural level, these are things that, long before Jesus, people like philosophers like Plato and Aristotle, understood and wrote about, is written about in Scripture. So this tradition is, 3,000 years old of seeing there's 4 core virtues around which all the other human virtues are connected. And so if you have these four, you've got the basics of moral character to be able to live a good life, a happy life, a virtuous life, to give the best of yourself to others. And those virtues are namely prudence, or practical wisdom, to make good decisions in life, and that's the first and foremost of the virtues. Then you've got temperance, which is self-control, and courage, fortitude, which helps us persist against difficulties and endure suffering. And then we have justice, which is giving others their due, fulfilling our responsibility to God, to our country, to our parents, to our family, to our employers. So it's we're living fairly and giving others their due. So those are the four cardinal virtues.
And if you, by implication, I guess, if you were to master those four to some degree or another, you've also mastered many other virtues in order to do that.
Well, basically, all like what Aquinas lays out is that all the other natural virtues fall under one of these four.
I see.
So these are the four master virtues, and then you need like a whole subset of the virtues to be a prudent person. To be a courageous person, I need patience, I need perseverance, I need magnanimity. So there's all these virtues, and again, this is. I'm telling you, 99% of Catholics don't even know they may not have even heard the word magnanimity that I just said.
Right.
But this is the basics of just what for 2,000 years many people knew. This is what you need to live life, and we've lost this. We're not teaching it in our schools. We're not teaching it even in catechesis today. We need to give this great tradition of the art of living back for ourselves and for our children.
Ralph in Iowa, thank you so much for your call, listening on 105.3 FM in Iowa. Ralph, go ahead with your question for Dr. Edwards III.
Yeah, Dr. Edwards, you just said the art of living, which should help me maybe phrase my question a little bit better. And that is, in teaching kids in RCIA, religious ed or RCIA, even young adults and stuff, it's the wording to instill the desire that this is what they really want.
Oh.
And that is something that I don't know. You're only going to. All teaching only hits so many minds and hearts at a certain time, and maybe it fulfills itself later in life. But that is one of the things that give them that deep desire. How do we give that to them, other than your grandpa taught it to you all his life, and you lived with your grandpa for 40 years? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So the desire for virtue, in a certain sense, you almost want that before you teach the virtues. Like, how do you get them to want it? Is that it, Ralph?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I think they have it in them. How do we do a good job of letting them know that's what's really itching inside of them? You know what I mean?
Dr. Sri?
Yeah. I think you're hitting a very good point here, is that the virtuous life isn't like just, I got to do these rules, or I have to achieve this kind of moral quality. And it's not like, just something you have to do and it's hard. No, it's actually, it corresponds to who we are. And our deepest desires are desires for happiness. So I'll tell a story. So back years ago, there's a wonderful Catholic school many of you have heard of called Benedictine College. It's in Atchison, Kansas. I was blessed to teach there from the late 90s to the mid-2000s. I was there for 9 years. Today it's known as one of the top Catholic colleges in the country. When I was there, it wasn't that way. Most of the kids that were in my theology class didn't want to be there. They had to get their religious studies requirement done. So I had to teach moral theology to them. And I knew if I just started talking about, here's the church's teaching on, drunkenness and homosexuality or gay, whatever. If you pick your hot button issue, they're all going to say, oh, that's just a bunch of rules. So I spent the whole first 2/3 of the class was talking all about, okay, what makes us happy? And then, they realize, okay, money, sex, power, all these things don't really make you happy. It's ultimately friendship. We're made for friendship with each other. And as a Christian, we would add on, say, the ultimate friendship is friendship with God. That's what Aquinas says, is that we're made for friendship with God. So then I said, okay, so you all long for relationships, you long for friendships. What do you need to be a good friend? Tell me about your best friends. And these are people that are loyal, dependable, they're faithful, and they're people that have virtue, And so we read some things from Aristotle that you need virtue to have good friends, good real friendships. And so they started seeing the connection. Oh, yeah, those people over there, those weren't really friends because they weren't virtuous. And then I said, we're going to spend time talking about the virtues. So we went and talked all about the virtues, and I made all these connections to real life. And they themselves made the connections going, oh, yeah, when my parents did that and they weren't virtuous, it really hurt me. When they made that choice, they thought more of themselves, and that really hurt me. Or when my old boyfriend or my old girlfriend did this and they weren't virtuous, that hurt me. They themselves were seeing the connection between lack of virtue and hurt in their own lives. And they saw the connection that they desired better relationships, and they knew that they needed virtue in their own life and virtue in the people they wanted to be friends with. So this was, again, coming from people that weren't rah-rah Catholics. It was just ordinary people. Faith isn't that important to them, but they're making these connections between virtue and friendship. And to your point, it was like, this is what I want. I want virtue so that I can be happy in my friendships, because that's what we're made for.
Ralph, I wonder if that addresses what you're looking for.
Oh, it does, but have you written it down for different age levels in school? How to address that teachers can do it without...
So you want a curriculum. You want Dr. Sri to give you a whole curriculum on that.
Well, not a whole curriculum, but a pretty good guide to how do you introduce that, because that just definitely gets into their spirituality.
Sure.
And everything else, and bingo, now you got somebody who desires it. Now they might listen to the facts about the church,
Dr. Sri?
Yeah, well, I'll say I haven't written like a grade level, grade by grade curriculum on it at all. But the book itself, The Art of Living, that's something I think any parent could take. I think any, children, or teacher could take, a catechist could take, and then apply it to their particular audience. So this is going to give, the adult the roadmap. They're going to understand it. And then I think it'd be up to them to then figure out what's the best way to break it down. But I'll say the way I write, it's very easy to read. I think any high school kid, I've had high school kids, read a little bit of this and give me some feedback. I think any junior high kid could even read this, so it's very low level, easy read. But again, I think it'd be up to the parent or teacher to apply it to their audience.
Ralph, I'm going to say thanks. If you'd like to call, you're welcome, 888-318-7884. But we have to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll have more calls for our guest, Dr. Edward Sri, regarding his new book, The Art of Living, the Cardinal Virtues and the Freedom to Love. If you're having trouble with the virtues yourself, or like Ralph, if you'd like to teach them to others, 888-318-7884.
There's only one Catholic Answers Live.
We have a big problem. Our culture is dying, and souls are in danger of being lost. The answer is conversion to Jesus Christ in His church. St. Paul Street Evangelization is a Catholic organization, and we have hundreds of teams spreading the good news throughout the country. But we need your help. The harvest is great, but the laborers are few. Find out more and get involved today at streetevangelization.com. That's streetevangelization.com.
EWTN uses the power of radio to reach people whenever and wherever they're searching for answers to questions about their Catholic faith. EWTN radio is heard on over 500 domestic and international AM and FM radio affiliates. For a complete list of programs and how to hear EWTN radio, visit EWTN.com and click radio. EWTN, the Global Catholic Network.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. Our guest, Dr. Edward Sri, you know him from Cymbalon, or you know him from maybe many of his, maybe you've had him in class. I just probably imagine there's thousands of people that have had Dr. Sri in a class here or there. Maybe you've heard him speak, or you know of him from Fellowship of Catholic University Students. Or maybe you've read one of his other books, like Into His Likeness, Be Transformed as a Disciple, or No Greater Love, A Biblical Walk Through Christ's Passion, and the others. The new book is The Art of Living, the cardinal virtues and the freedom to love. And that's what we are talking about today, freedom to love. 888-318-7884 is our number here, 888-318-7884. It does, it seems to me that if you're going to talk about the freedom to love, you're going to have to say something. And I wonder if you do in this book, or if it is kind of maybe implied in the book, but there's a backwards idea of freedom that makes you unhappy. And that is actually, I would say, the prevalent idea. And that's why I think we have so many unhappy people in our society. And that is that freedom is license, essentially. Freedom is the ability to do what you want, or just the, the permission, I suppose. Freedom is permission. That'll make you miserable.
Yeah. It's not true freedom. It's so sad, the shallow understanding of freedom that is pervading our modern world. Everyone grows up thinking that's what freedom is, right? It's to be able to do what I want, when I want, how often I want, as I want. I just want to be free. Don't let anyone tell me what to do. Don't let the church tell me what to do, my parents, tradition. I just want to do what I want. But here's the problem. If I'm always doing what I want, when I want, how I want, as often as I want, I'm not free. I am not free. I'm a slave. I'm a slave to my own selfishness. I'm a slave to my own, passions and desires and emotions. I am not free. True freedom is the ability to perform actions of high quality. That's a great definition given by a modern theologian. So it's the ability to perform actions of high quality, actions of excellence. So for example, we talked about my son, the pianist. He's free to play a Mozart concerto. He has the skill. I'm not free. I play piano, but I'm not that good, so I'm not free. Cristiano Ronaldo is free to score lots of soccer goals for his new team, Manchester United, just announced today he's going there. I'm just not free to score goals in the English Premier League because I'm just not that great at soccer, so you think about sports, you think about, you can think about music, but the same is true in life. If someone's just trained to always do what they want all the time, they're not going to be free to be a good husband. They're going to be selfish, right? If I just play video games all day long and I entertain myself all day long, it's not easy for me to get out of myself and make sacrifices to serve other people because I'm always entertaining myself all the time. So we actually form really bad habits when we're always doing what we want, according to modern American freedom. JP2 called this a self-centered freedom.
It is a self-centered freedom, and you almost feel like that's part of why people are in a constant state of searching for some new system to follow, or some new, some new something that will bring order to their life, because that idea of freedom has brought tremendous disorder.
Yeah, they're always going after the latest fad, whether it's the latest kind of exercise or latest kind of yoga or the latest self-help book, or here's, the 5 key things you need to finally find yourself. There's the latest things, and they it doesn't mean you can't learn from some of these things and find a little insight, but in the end, the art of living has already been given to us by Jesus Christ. It's passed on through the Catholic faith and has been articulated by many great thinkers throughout the ages in terms of these 4 cardinal virtues. In our modern world, because they don't know it, in the period of a couple hundred years ago, there was this movement. It's called the Enlightenment. I don't want to get into all the details there, but there was a real movement to say, let's set aside the past, and we know better. And we're going to do education better, we're going to do family better, we're going to do marriage better, we're going to just set aside tradition in the past, and we're going to think for ourselves, and it's going to be great. And that's like that analogy I gave at the beginning of the show of the piano player going into the piano room and figuring it out by themselves. Good luck with that. I'm so thankful my son had this wonderful piano teacher who had beautiful music and was able to pass on this beautiful tradition of the art of playing piano well. We need to learn the art of living so we can pass that on as well.
Again, our number 888-318-7884. So what's is the book then, The Art of Living, is it like the way you speak about it now, you did mention that one of the 3 things I've got to do to gain the virtues in my own life is to rely on the grace of God. But is that does that mean that the book is for the Christian person, or is the book for the person who might not be Christian, might not have faith, but is interested in learning the art of living?
Yeah, I think in my mind, I had mostly Christians in mind when I wrote the book, in the sense that I'm often giving some Bible stories or an example if I'm a saint, But that being said, I do think that an ordinary, person of goodwill that might not be a person of faith, as long as they don't mind a scripture reference here. I'm not using it to prove things as much as I am using the scriptures and the saints to shed light on the human condition and the virtuous life. But no, I mean, look, the four cardinal virtues, again, while they are in the Bible, they were articulated by many people who weren't Christian. All the ancient Greek philosophers, the early Roman orators, they all understood that there were these four virtues, that you needed. I remember this movie a long time ago. Do you remember the Russell Crowe movie Gladiator? That's what it was. I don't know if you remember, there was like the emperor had his son, I forget the main guy, Cosimus or something like that. Who was supposed to be the next Commodus, that's right. And then the emperor says, but you can't lead. You can't be the one, because you don't have what? You don't have prudence, courage, temperance, and justice. You lack in the virtues. And it was I just remember catching that. Wow, Hollywood understood something of the ancient Roman mindset of the cardinal virtues there.
Right.
And quite appropriately, that was a good decision. He's not fit to lead if you don't have that. I wish we would choose our leaders today by those standards.
Well, yeah, exactly, yes. But there is... okay, so I guess I would ask you this before we have to go, and we don't have that much more time with you, but as beautiful and helpful as the cardinal virtues are, they are not complete without the theological virtues, without faith, hope, and charity. Is that right? Am I speaking correctly, or am I misunderstanding?
Yes. I think that's spot on. Yeah, and maybe one day I'll write a book to complete the thing on the three theological virtues. Yeah, so these are natural virtues in the sense that you can acquire them, without grace, human effort. You need to be a baptized person to have these four virtues, right? So whereas the faith, hope, and charity are infused at baptism, and grow through the sacraments. So they also are. Again, you don't have to know about these through divine revelations. That's why they're called natural virtues. The ancient Greeks came up with this as well, right? Whereas faith, hope, and charity, Plato never came up with that, so that it's known by divine revelation.
Right.
And ultimately, the faith, hope, and charity bring us to the full perfection of the human person. So they're really good. You can work on them on your own. You can get pretty far, through effort. But as I mentioned at the beginning, even with the best effort, you are going to need God's grace to get you to the perfection of these virtues, because we're fallen. We need God's grace to get us there.
Let me see if of course, now I've got callers all over the lines. This is how Fridays work. They wait to the last 2 minutes. So I'm going to have to ask you to ask your question really quickly, Julia. We'll try to get to as many of the callers as we can before we have to go. But Julia, go ahead with your question as quickly as you can for Dr. Sri.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Sri. I'm wondering, is it possible that you can become so obsessed with becoming virtuous that you maybe miss the whole entire point of what it means to live maybe a charitable life or with love, that it's almost so legalistic?
Oh, you're trying to be perfect.
Yes, yep, and maybe pride is coming into that as well. But what would you recommend telling someone who you see kind of has that tendency to strive?
Okay, well, I'm going to let Dr. Sri answer. Go ahead.
Right. Yeah, if you have the perfectionistic streak, which many of us, can struggle with, I think it's good to try to go after virtue in your life, and so don't ever be ashamed of that or think that that's something bad. I've met people that are like, hey, at Lent, I'm going to grow in one virtue each week for Lent, and that's pride. Like when you think you can do it all on your own and you can accomplish it on your own, that's a problem.
Oh, yeah.
So if you go into it humbly saying, I need to grow, and I need God's grace, and I'm going to try, Lord, and I'm not going to beat myself up when I fall. I'm going to just throw myself into the arms of your mercy. I think if you have that disposition of I'm really trying to grow and root out vice, but I'm doing it humbly, really relying on Jesus in his time, in his plan, not my timetable and my plan for it.
Oh, that is really, that's surprisingly helpful to me, because I don't have the problem of perfectionism, as you could probably tell just by knowing me. But that is That what you just said I found extremely helpful. So, Dr. Ted Sri, thanks so much. It is always just great to talk with you.
Oh, thanks for having me. God bless.
Yeah, congratulations on the new book as well, The Art of Living the Cardinal Virtues and the Freedom to Love. It's from Ignatius Press and the Augustine Institute. You can get it wherever good Catholic books are sold, but don't go where they sell lousy Catholic books. It won't be there because it's a good Catholic book. And that'll do it for us. We'll see you next time, God willing, right here on Catholic Answers Live. In the meantime, don't forget this. Jesus Christ is the light of the nations.